Hello, happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of the Cole Memo. Folks, we are live, and today we'll be talking about the latest buzz surrounding the potential that cannabis could be rescheduled at a federal level, and what seems to be a recent PR push on the subject of scromiting and cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. And if you've not heard of either of those words, just hang on. We'll be talking about that here on the show. Folks, I appreciate you tuning in. And as always, since we are live, if you drop your comment below, we can display them. Somebody's saying Scromiting is fake news created by the haters. Somebody else is saying good evening. And Trichome Farmer is saying rock on. Rock on indeed. Happy Friday. So, folks, we'll be discussing rescheduling of cannabis, what that could mean. We'll be talking about CHS, everybody's favorite topic, scromiting. And we will be taking your calls right here on
the Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
If you haven't been following the details, the cannabis rescheduling process actually began back in October of 2022 when President Biden directed federal agencies to review cannabis's status under the Controlled Substances Act. This is something we've been covering on the show, well, since it happened. The Department of Health and Human Services later recommended moving cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. A shift that some supporters argue could ease research barriers and provide some relief for the legal industry as it exists today. Now, after that recommendation, the process largely stalled with very little public movement until August 11th, 2025, when President Donald Trump said a decision could come within weeks. Now, just a few months later, so much for a few weeks. A few months later, rumors are swirling that Trump could move forward with rescheduling as soon as this Monday, December 15th, 2025. Now, we're about to watch a news clip on this. If you'll recall, I think I'm recalling this correctly. Please, folks, if you're watching right now, comment below and correct me if I'm wrong. But if you'll recall, or if I guess I'm recalling correctly, I should say, I believe rescheduling was actually leaked by the prohibitionist group Smart Approaches to Marijuana. So before this whole thing happened with Joe Biden, I believe this was in 2022, Smart Approaches to Marijuana via their podcast leaked that this movement, that this change in how we classify cannabis at a federal level could be coming around the corner. As a note, this group, who, like I said, is a prohibitionist group, in other words, they're not supportive of the legalization of cannabis. They've been on the show several times. You can watch those episodes at colememo.com/Sam. I think it's notable because they are super connected with the DEA. They were super connected with then White House the Biden administration. They seem to be very well connected still today. And so let's fast forward to today. With this latest wave of rescheduling rumors, we're once again seeing Smart Approaches to Marijuana sounding the alarm. Kevin Sabet and others have took to social media to urge the Trump administration not to reschedule cannabis, citing public health concerns and other arguments. I think it's notable that they're making this much noise now, considering they were effectively the group that tipped everyone off the last time this came around. This is also a group, like I said, that's highly connected to people inside the administration and within the DEA, which makes their public calls to action, I think, especially worth paying attention to. I'm curious what you all think about this. I know we've got comments dropping in right now. Let's watch this report on, this was on CNBC on the subject of rescheduling cannabis. Here it is.
Reports say President Trump is preparing to order his administration to reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug.
A Washington Post report said Trump held a meeting at the White House on Wednesday with marijuana industry executives, along with HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and CMS Administrator Dr. Mehmet Oz. They were joined on the phone by Speaker Mike Johnson, who cited studies arguing against the move. The executives reportedly rebutted Speaker Johnson's arguments, and Trump left the conversation prepared to move forward with the reclassification. The reports say nothing is final, and President Trump could still change his mind on this. Cannabis is currently labeled a Schedule I drug in the same category as heroin and LSD. Reclassifying it as a Schedule III would put it at the same level as steroids and Tylenol with codeine. So you see the reflex move in a lot of these cannabis stocks, which really do always trade.
30% on this?
They always trade as just kind of lottery tickets on policy changes. And look at them. Look at the price levels, right?
Right.
And
okay.
Tilray just did a
30%
reverse split to get it to 10. So.
Look, the only thing I will say is it's coming on the same week as the New York Post and others writing about this Scromiting issue where people who have smoked marijuana wind up with screaming vomiting cases in the hospital. It's not the same stuff it used to be. Maybe these companies are dealing with much different, more closely monitored versions of that stuff.
Right.
But, there's still some scary stuff happening in the drug trade.
What happened?
Some bad people tried to hack me.
Sorry about that, folks. Didn't mean to hit you with an extra ad there. We all need less of that in our lives. I was just trying to take in that news anchor was literally using talking points from that prohibitionist group I just mentioned, Smart Approaches to Marijuana. They always say, this isn't your grandma's marijuana or whatever. And it's like, look, here's what I will do. Here's what I will recommend you do. Google the myth of increased cannabis potency. I'm pretty sure that'll get you what you need to see. Let's just check it out here. I'll Google it myself. The myth of increased cannabis potency. Because guess what? They've been saying, when by they, I mean people against cannabis, have been saying that cannabis is like not your grandma's marijuana since like the 60s. So actually, I will say, search up the myth of increased cannabis potency, Dana Larson, who has been on the show in the past. Cannabis is not more potent than it has been in years past. Are there more potent options? Absolutely. There's concentrate now, right? But let's not pretend that hash hasn't existed for, I don't know, thousands of years. Concentrated cannabis is nothing new. I'm curious what you all think about this. We're going to be talking about Scromiting in the next section, but I just wanted to take on that talking point head on. Cannabis is not any more potent than it was in years past. Have cultivation techniques come around, and are we breeding products that maybe we've never seen before? Sure. But to act like the plant biologically is like some supercharged monster now is just, it's laughable, it's ridiculous, and it's not backed up by data, most importantly, I'd say. What do you all think about this? Like I say, I think it's super notable that Sam is sounding the alarm on this, because in the past, look, it's like every fucking week I see on Twitter people saying, oh, Trump's signing EOs this afternoon, executive orders. Maybe he's going to reschedule. They've been saying that for the past few months because, of course, he said it could happen within the next few weeks. They were saying that before then, though. That seemed like it was all noise. I think this call to action, if you will, by Smart Approaches to Marijuana is notable because last time they put out a call to action like this, something happened. I'm telling you, these people are connected. That's why I bring them on the podcast. Check out the episodes at colememo.com/Sam. Even though we don't agree on much, it's certainly an interesting conversation, and that's why I always invite them on, and I've invited them back onto the show. They've read my message. They've not responded, but I'm guessing right now they're in full court press mode. So maybe I'll hear back in the future. Once again, you can call in at colememo.com/live. We are live right now. Somebody asked, what are you smoking on? Smoking on some homegrown. I don't even know what it is. I was given it by a friend. I don't remember what it is. Shout out to F1 Genetics. Thanks for tuning in. I agree. It's crazy. Trichome Farmer says, politics make me want to scrom it. So folks, We're going to keep the show moving, but please keep your comments coming in. How do you feel about cannabis rescheduling? That's one thing that I should mention before I move on. I was reached out to by a mainstream media source today on both of the subjects we're discussing in today's episode, both rescheduling and scromiting. And this is the answer that I gave on the record. I'll read it. I don't know if this quote is going to appear in the media, but this is what the journalist sent me that they captured with regard to what I said. So they said, Cole Preston, host of the Cole Memo podcast about all things cannabis. We talk about more. I'm not going to critique them on that. I think that's a good description of the show. They said Cole Preston was only slightly encouraged by the possibility of rescheduling. And here's what I said in a quote. It's a step in the right direction, but it's not meaningful reform. The goal of the cannabis decriminalization movement has always been to treat cannabis similarly to alcohol and tobacco. Alcohol and tobacco are not classified as controlled substances. Meaningful reform requires complete descheduling because moving cannabis to Schedule 3 would still leave it classified as a controlled substance. End quote. Those are my thoughts. It's a step in the right direction. It's nice to not have it classified as a drug that has the highest potential for abuse alongside drugs like heroin. But that's not enough. Cannabis doesn't deserve, and frankly, a lot of those drugs don't deserve to be on the controlled substances list. If you look at the controlled substances list, it's enjoyable drugs. And I'm quoting Hamilton Morris, who gave me this hat that you can see behind me that says, the DEA is a terrorist organization. You can look up how he feels about the DEA, but what I will just say is mostly what's on the controlled substances list, as Hamilton says, is enjoyable drugs. It's not like you don't see poisons or, toxins on the controlled substances list. It's just drugs that people enjoy using. F1 Gen X says, I'm more concerned about seed restrictions. I agree. Rescheduling isn't ideal, but it's necessary to get something moving. Yeah, like I said, I think it's a step in the right direction. It's an acknowledgement that cannabis should not be treated as a Schedule 1 substance, but I don't think it should be treated like a controlled substance at all. Again, this whole movement was about treating cannabis similarly to alcohol and tobacco. And I want you to be very mindful of the wording that I'm using. I say similarly. I'm not saying regulate cannabis like alcohol and tobacco, because that's not good. I'll just keep it at that right now. The way that alcohol and tobacco are regulated is not great, but it's better than the way that cannabis is regulated. Cannabis is over-regulated. My problem with alcohol and tobacco mainly are the structure of the market and how it has produced an oligopoly. That said, it is interesting to see in alcohol the craft movement sort of take off within the last, decade or so. So these are all interesting thoughts. And I will just say, in case you didn't know, home brewing didn't become legal with prohibition. Home brewing, if I'm recalling correctly, I learned this from Mike Fouché, a former reporter at Gronin.com. He worked with the Department of Energy, big, amazing guy. He taught me that President Jimmy Carter is actually the person that legalized home brewing of alcohol. And so I think this is interesting context here because even alcohol wasn't regulated the way that it is today at the end of Prohibition. We've seen it take different forms and such. So curious what you all think about this. We're going to talk about scromiting on this next segment of the Cole Memo. And for For that reason, I think this little bumper that I'm about to play is absolutely perfect. Folks, thank you for tuning in to
The Cole Memo.
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 The Cole Memorandums.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo. This drug is dangerous. You cannot play with it. It's not funny. It's not something to laugh about. Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Good people don't smoke marijuana. Thank you, Jeff. So we're going to be talking about scromiting. Have you heard about scromiting? It's the combination of screaming and vomiting that's apparently caused by cannabis use. Let's watch a news clip on the subject to learn more. It features a doctor.
All right, I guess for some chronic cannabis use.
Whoops, got that on double speed. Let me adjust that. Here we go. Let's watch this report.
For some chronic cannabis users, getting the munchies is the least of their concerns. Get this, over the past decade, ERs are reporting a surge in regular cannabis users showing up with sudden stomach-churning attacks that leave them doubled over in pain, oftentimes a few times a year. Fox Medical Team's Dr. Mike joining us now live to talk about this phenomenon. Dr. Mike, there's a new verb for this. It's called scromiting, okay? It's like a combination of screaming and vomiting at the same time. This sounds awful. What is going on here?
Well, Anthony, if you're a regular user of marijuana, like daily, and it's rather heavy use, and you end up with significant vomiting and abdominal pain, and you're writhing in pain, not feeling well, getting dehydrated, you're going to end up in an emergency room. And that's what we're seeing more and more. Now, for many viewers, they'll be happy to know that I finally brought my brain with me, okay? And basically what happens is if you use marijuana for prolonged periods of time, it really does affect receptors in the brain that, as you astutely mentioned, have a connection to the gastrointestinal tract. We often talk about feeling hungry when you use marijuana. What this does in heavy users, you end up with intractable nausea, vomiting, and because you have all of that cyclic vomiting and nausea, you can develop the abdominal pain. You don't feel well. You end up in the emergency room. So that's the name of it. It's been around a long time, I think since 2004. Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. That's the technical name for it. The slang is that scromiting. And so got to be aware if you're using a lot of marijuana and all of a sudden you start developing these symptoms, probably going to go to the ER and get evaluated. And the only treatment is to stop using the marijuana. We can give you some things to try to help, but there's not a lot that we can do for it other than stopping it and giving you IV fluids if you're dehydrated.
Yeah, seems like a pretty simple solution there. Just cut back on the use. Now, let me ask you this. You said that it's been going on since about 2004. I have heard that over the years, marijuana, cannabis has gotten more potent. Does that have to do with this whole scromiting phenomenon?
So, you know, Anthony, you are so astute. I love it. I love it. Yes, the potency has gone up. You know, back in my day, Cheech and Chong, this is not grandma's marijuana. Much higher levels of THC. But some experts think it might be synthetic marijuana that is causing this. So there's a lot of possibilities. Bottom line is the only thing you can do to get rid of it and stop it is to stop using it. First of all, I don't know how you get through the day if you're using marijuana heavily every single day. I mean, I don't know how you deal with that and try to eke out a living. I have no idea. But anyway, that's what you do.
The cost-benefit analysis there doesn't really check out here. Scromiting doesn't seem worth it. Let me ask you another question while we have you on the line, Doc.
All right. Well, speaking of on the line, you can call at colememo.com/live. Brian, would love it if you called in. Cannabis critique. He says, not everybody's a rock star. That's right. Speaking of Cannabis critique, you see that hat back there? I got that hat from Cannabis critique, had to put it on display. Look, there's so many things, but let's just start with, they said this started in 2004. All right. We've already addressed, we'll get back to the point of this isn't your grandma's marijuana or whatever. Let's start with the fact that this started in 2004, because I disagree. I bet you this has been happening for a while. And I know I'm probably losing you right now. You're probably saying, Cole, wait a minute. This is fake. Look, I know two people that say that they suffer from this. I had one of them on the show. I'll drop the link in the show notes. You can check him out. He continues to use cannabis despite saying that he suffers from this. He uses it. He's found that he's just got to be a little bit more responsible with it. Here's how I look at this. Bear with me here. This is good. This is good news. This is a good thing that has come out of legalization. What do I mean by that? Some people have sensitivities to things. Some people are allergic to peanut butter. I know people that can't drink a beer because of just the way that they are, or because of the medication they take and how it interacts. This is great news. We're identifying people that might have a sensitivity to cannabis, or perhaps a genetic predisposition. Is that a reason to make cannabis illegal again? No. This is why it should have been illegal. This is why it should have been legal all along. In the past, people may have been suffering from this, and because of stigma due to criminalization, or just stigma in general, they may not have been comfortable discussing this with their doctor. If they were actually experiencing these things, they may not have divulged that they were using cannabis because of the legal ramifications. This is good. Whatever. I don't know a lot of people that suffer from this, but I think that look, this has never been about safety. This is where people get it all mixed up. They'll say, or medicinal, they'll make it about safety, medicinal uses, how it's a spiritual drug. That's all besides the point. If we want to say that we live in a free country, we should have the freedom to explore all modes of consciousness. We should have cognitive liberty. Again, if we want to say we live in a free society, we should be allowed to engage in risks. We should be allowed to explore our mind. And we're allowed to do that with it. You want to talk about scromiting? What happens when you drink too much alcohol? First of all, you might die. You might die. Go home, go get some Everclear from the liquor store and try to drink that. I'm joking. That's not real advice, because you could probably die. But you know what you'll probably do before that? Throw up. You know what I do when I throw up? I'm not happy about it, so I kind of like moan a bit. It's that moaning and scromiting. Sometimes, I don't know. What's funny is I talked to my friend, and I'm going to look at the comments here in a second. I've kind of broke the third wall or the fourth wall here. I talked to my friend that I mentioned earlier, says, he suffers from this. And I said, he asked me, what's this scromiting thing you said? Because I reached out to him today. And I said, have you seen all the stuff about scromiting in the news? Because we talked about his, CHS quite a while ago. And I don't know, I guess we must not have said that at the time. I had heard of the term for a while just because I think it's funny. Anyways, he said, scromiting, what does that even mean? I said, screaming and vomiting. And he said, it's impossible to scream while I vomit. I've tried. His story is pretty crazy. I got connected to him from Alice Moon, who you actually may have heard of before. I posted the link in the comments. I'll put it in the show notes if you're listening to this after the live broadcast. Alice Moon also says that she suffers from CHS. she still is a cannabis advocate. I believe she doesn't use cannabis anymore, but Jared, I brought onto the show, I thought his case was especially interesting. Not only does he say, yes, Cole, I suffer from CHS, and in some cases it's put me in the hospital, and I've been in, like, I get so dehydrated my hands curl up, which crazy. But I still use cannabis, he says. I just have to be careful about how I use it. And he wants to use it. And he's actually been trying to figure out what causes it. He grows his own. He tries to, like, he's trying to do some science. Like, oh, what if I don't add this? Is this what's causing it? He's trying to figure it out the best he can. And like I say, I think this is good. This is all good. You know, look, even if we find out somebody can die from this. Oh, sorry, I just saw this comment. That's what I was thinking as well. Who vomits quietly? Exactly. That's the point I was trying to make. I'm never happy. Never happy when I'm vomiting. But anyways, look, even if we find out that some form of dab kills people, that's not a reason to criminalize cannabis. Because again, you can die. We all know that, you know, cigarettes and alcohol are a leading cause of death. Driving, something that a lot of us do, big cause of death, super dangerous activity. We should still have the freedom to do it. We should be aware of the risks, which is why the data is so great. We can point to it and say, yeah, that's a risky behavior. Be careful. Wear your seatbelt. Drink responsibly. I don't know. Some people, like, are getting real mad about this being in the headlines, and I get it. And you know why I think it's in the headlines right now? Because apparently Trump is considering rescheduling cannabis. That's the reason that all this stuff popped up in the news within the last week. You know who watches the news a lot? Our president. Yeah, and just people in general. That's how I've learned in recent past, you know, that's kind of how the news works. We'll maybe break that down in another episode. We've talked about it in the past. I know for sure on our Patreon. Can't remember which episode, but anyways, curious what you all think about this. I'm about to close out this show. Cannabis Critique says, I always suspected it was normies using vapes that are very strong, which they don't realize going into it. I find normies treat vapes as weaker than flower when the reality is opposite. Yeah. And to just briefly extend your point, some people I don't think understand that, like, the vape pens, sometimes maybe it's just my experience and anecdotally other people around me. But it seems like sometimes the vape pen, like, there's like a delay, like you hit it a few times, you're like, yeah, I'm feeling okay. But then it's like 5 or 10 minutes later, it really fucking sets in for people. And at that point, yeah, Cannabis Critique is saying, I've thrown up from taking a toke in the morning. Me too. I don't know about the stats on this, Brandon. Doesn't Scrum. This is the things, though, that you should, these are the types of questions you should ask when you read these stories in the media. Brilliant question here. Wish I would have done the research on that ahead of this. My point, though, earlier is that I don't know a lot of people. I know that's anecdotal. Most people I know partake. Especially as time goes on, the more people I meet, they're typically in this sector, if you will. I'm not in the sector. I don't know why I just said that. Flash C4 asks, what are his consumption levels? What cultivars? Check out the episode. I dropped the link in the comments. I can't remember. We recorded that episode a while ago, but it's like daily use. All right, folks. Well, a lot of good comments. Really good show. Cannabis Critique says, could very well be a mental block as well. Like, you got too drunk on vodka once and now you can't drink it. Same thing here. That is a amazing point. I have never considered that. I know people that say that exact thing. They're like, oh, just thinking of this alcoholic beverage, like, makes me nauseous right now. Like, literally. That's a brilliant point. It's almost like PTSD related to like a sensory, or like, yeah, that's, man, I got to think about that. That was a really good comment. Someone said I just got a little bit throw up in the back of my throat thinking about these 15-minute high weed. I don't know what I was with you on the first half. I don't know what you were saying on the second half. We at the dispenser. I've never heard of anyone suffering from that. Well, yeah, no, I mean, look, not a lot of people have heard of it. I know some people in healthcare that told me about it within the last year. I was like, yeah, I've heard of that. So there's even people in healthcare that are like learning about it, is my point. Like that's their job, to know these things. I've seen some speculation online that sometimes people are just coming in. Curious what you think about this. So this is probably my last thought before I go. I'll read some comments again before I go, but this is an interesting thought that I've seen online regarding the subject. Apparently people will come in and, complain about throwing up or stomach issues or whatever. And doctors will ask, okay, so like, what do they're trying to get like a feel for like how you live, like troubleshooting your body. And, what do you do? Do you smoke? Do you drink? And then, maybe you reply, well, I don't smoke cigarettes. And then the doctor's like, oh, what do you smoke? And you're like, well, I smoke weed. And then the doctor's just like, oh, you're suffering from cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. I've seen, so I just acted out a scenario to put it in plain English. I've seen speculation online that basically people say, like, if you're coming in with issues that at all sound like CHS and you bring up the fact that you use cannabis, they're just going to, by default, diagnose you with CHS, which is troublesome because it's like, that kind of goes against what I was saying earlier, if that's the true nature of what's going on. I try to look at this with a silver lining, like, hey, this is a good thing. We're identifying people that have, sensitivities or genetic predispositions, for lack of better words, to cannabis, and we're collecting that data and, acting on it. But if this speculation I read online is true, that these doctors are just like trying to get you in and out and be like, oh, you smoke cannabis? Yeah, you got CHS. Get the fuck out of here. Stop smoking weed. Again, I don't know that this is true. I just these are things I've read online. And so take that all for what it is worth. Somebody asked, okay, yeah, we're going to wrap up the show and I will answer those questions. Everybody, thank you for tuning in to
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo. The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo is what allows this whole thing to go on.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
Hey, this is Tommy Chong, and you're listening and watching The Cole Memo.
All right, I'm back. Let's read some comments to close out the show. Hope you're all having a good Friday. Just sending out a text message here. So somebody had commented. I wanted to answer the question, but if you wondered why we have bumpers, I don't know if you care. Holy crap, we've got like 44 people tuned in between YouTube and Twitter. I don't know about Instagram. I don't know. Instagram never shows anything. But somebody asked, what makes you think they could reschedule so soon? I completely lost my train of thought, so I'm just going to go to this question. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Sorry. If you're wondering why we have like music between subjects and stuff, it just makes it easier for me to produce segments. I saw another news show that I watched do that, and I was like, that's smart. I'm going to start doing that. So not that any of you really cared, I'm sure, but this person asked, I missed the beginning. What makes you think they could reschedule so soon? So basically there's a lot of news reports right now. Like a lot of media outlets are reporting it. I should also say, I should have said that like outlets like Marijuana Moment and other outlets have reported that some White House officials have said that the decision is not made. Like it's not like it's a done deal. Then I've seen outlets like the Marijuana Herald publish that they were told by a trusted White House official that it is a done deal. Most of the outlets at this point that I've seen are reporting that something's going to happen on Monday. And I guess really to get to the root of your question, setting aside the media speculation, what really makes me think this is going to happen is the prohibitionist group Smart Approaches to Marijuana sounding the alarm on this whole thing. Because the last time they did this, they were right. I'm pretty sure they broke the news about rescheduling. If I recall correctly, and I should have looked into this before I got on the show. It's definitely on the show because I've had, like I said, if you go to colememo.com/Sam, I talk about it with them. I'm like, yo, you guys broke this fucking news. So they've got connections in the DEA. They've got connections in the White House administration. And for some reason, I talked to them and have dinner, or I've had dinner with one of them in Washington, D.C. Took a picture together. It was fun. It's a whole thing. You can actually see the conversation we had if you go to colememo.com/Sam, the conversation we had in Washington, D.C. But that's why I think that it's going to happen. They say, thank you. I've been a bit confused. Haven't dug into it too much. The media makes my head hurt lately. Thank you for the solid info as always. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Greater than 22. To like kind of parse your name there. Schedule 3 is certainly a Trojan horse that will destroy the industry if the rules around it are not written correctly. Yeah, and this is the point that I was just about to go to. For instance, no current dispensary is allowed to sell Schedule 3 drugs, and the pharmacies in the states that operate will likely try to restrict them. I definitely agree on that last part. The first part, and I say this with the folks at Cole Memo, or said this to the people at SAM, the prohibitionist group at colememo.com/Sam. I've said we're already disregarding the Controlled Substances Act anyway, so I don't necessarily foresee Schedule 3 being the end of adult use and medical as we know it. However, to your point, that is speculation I've read online. Some people say this is the end and that you're going to have to get a license from the DEA and you're going to have to it's going to knock a bunch of people out and it's going to be this great reckoning and it's not going to be over the counter the way that it is. And look, I can see why people think that. I'm just probably being a little bit too optimistic. I just can't see the progress that has been made just being completely upended, but I also thought that about hemp. So, we shall see. I appreciate you dropping that comment because it is, good info to consider. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you. If you haven't hit the like button, I would really appreciate it. It helps put my show in front of other eyes. And it's just a great way to support the show. If you haven't subscribed yet, that's also a great way to support the show. Share it with your friends. Go to colememo.com/support and support that way if you're able. If not, it is all good. Like I say, tuning in is more than enough. And I hope you found value in this episode of the Cole Memo, folks. We'll see you on the next one. If you haven't yet, check out my mini doc at colememo.com/mini-doc. It's sort of like a culmination of a lot of my work, and it lays out in a more succinct manner why I am so passionate about what I am passionate about. And everything that's covered in it has, I cite my sources. There's a bibliography, it's good stuff. And it's free to watch, colememo.com/mini-doc. I appreciate you all tuning in, and I also agree with this comment. We should remind ourselves one of the statements that Trump made when he was asked about rescheduling was, I've heard some good things about medical, but I've heard bad things about he says something like just about everything else. People should Google it, what I'm talking about. Maybe I can have it linked I'll try to link it in the show notes. We've definitely covered it on the show in the past, but in case you missed it, I'll try to link it in the show notes after the fact. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a great weekend. We'll see you.